The room was unnervingly quiet, save for the gentle hum of the air conditioning. Dim, warm lighting softened the edges of the leather couch where Anna sat, her back rigid and hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across from her sat her husband, Greg, his gaze fixed firmly on the ornate carpet as though it held the answers to all the questions he didn't want to answer. Between them was Dr. Evelyn Moore, the marriage counselor. Evelyn's soothing voice broke the silence. "Anna, why don't we start with you? Tell me how you feel about where things stand between you and Greg." Anna swallowed hard, her throat dry. Her mind raced with a swirl of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. She glanced at Greg, searching his expression for even a shred of remorse. Instead, his face was unreadable, stoic. "I feel," Anna began, her voice trembling. "I feel like I'm losing my mind. Like everything I thought I knew about my marriage is slipping away." Evelyn leaned forward slightly, her pen poised over her notepad. Her kind eyes glimmered with understanding, or so Anna thought. "That sounds exhausting. Can you elaborate on what's been happening to make you feel this way?" Anna hesitated, the weight of the past few months pressing down on her chest like a physical burden. "It's hard to explain," she admitted. "But lately I've been questioning everything. Greg's behavior has been so off. He's secretive, distant, and he always seems to have an excuse for everything. I've tried talking to him, but—" "She doesn't listen," Greg interrupted sharply, his tone laced with frustration. Anna's head snapped toward him, her eyes narrowing. "Excuse me? You don't listen," Greg repeated, his voice rising slightly. "Every time I try to explain, you twist my words or accuse me of something ridiculous. Evelyn, you know how irrational she's been, right?" Anna's stomach churned. Evelyn's gaze flickered briefly to Greg, her expression calm and composed, but there was something in her eyes that made Anna's breath catch. It was quick, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a flicker of familiarity, a connection. Something was wrong. Evelyn's voice brought Anna back to the moment. "Anna, it's important that we create a safe space here for both of you to express yourselves. Let's try to focus on understanding each other rather than assigning blame." But Anna couldn't focus. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something vital. Her mind replayed the way Evelyn had looked at Greg, the subtle shift in her tone when she spoke to him. And then it hit her. The way Evelyn said his name. The way she avoided Anna's eyes when she spoke. The way Greg seemed unusually defensive, almost protective of the counselor. Her heart pounded as she pieced it together, the horrifying realization dawning on her like a thunderclap. Evelyn wasn't just their counselor. She wasn't just a neutral third party trying to mend their marriage. She was Greg's lover. And suddenly Anna understood. They weren't here to save her marriage. They were here to destroy her. Anna tried to steady her breathing, her pulse racing as if it were trying to outrun her thoughts. She couldn't let on, not yet. She needed to be sure. "So, Greg," she said slowly, keeping her voice as even as she could manage. "Why don't you tell Evelyn about the business trip last month? You know, the one where your phone conveniently died for 3 days?" Greg stiffened, his jaw tightening. "I told you already. My phone wasn't working and I was busy with meetings. I don't know why you keep bringing this up." Evelyn interjected, her tone gentle but firm. "Anna, do you feel like there's a lack of transparency in your relationship?" Anna turned to her, her eyes narrowing. "What do you think, Dr. Moore? If your husband vanished for 3 days with no explanation, would you trust him?" Evelyn held her gaze, her expression unreadable. "Trust is a cornerstone of any marriage," she said carefully. "But it's also important to avoid jumping to conclusions without evidence." Anna clenched her fists, the counselor's words igniting a spark of anger. "Evidence," she repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Right. Because my gut feeling and the mountain of red flags don't count as evidence." Greg sighed loudly, running a hand through his hair. "This is exactly what I mean, Evelyn. She's always looking for something to accuse me of. It's exhausting." Anna's gaze flicked between them, noting how Greg's tone softened when he said Evelyn's name. Her stomach turned. "Maybe I am irrational," Anna said suddenly, her voice sharp and cold. "Maybe I'm just paranoid. Or maybe," she turned to Evelyn, her eyes blazing with suspicion. "Maybe there's a reason Greg feels so comfortable around you. A reason why he's so quick to dismiss my concerns." Evelyn froze for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Anna to see the truth in her expression. Greg leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. "Anna, stop. You're embarrassing yourself." But Anna wasn't listening. She stood abruptly, her body trembling with rage and betrayal. "You think I don't see it? The way you look at each other? The way you talk to her like she's your ally, not your counselor?" Evelyn rose to her feet, her calm facade beginning to crack. Anna, I think we need to take a step back. These accusations are true, aren't they? Anna spat, cutting her off. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Greg stood, his face a mask of anger and desperation. Anna, you're out of line. Evelyn is a professional. She's here to help us, not be the target of your insane theories. Evelyn held up a hand, her voice soothing but firm. Let's all take a deep breath. This session is about healing, not tearing each other apart. But Anna wasn't backing down. She took a step closer to Evelyn, her voice shaking with fury. You're sleeping with my husband, aren't you? Evelyn's composure faltered, her eyes darting to Greg before returning to Anna. That's a serious accusation, she said quietly. Anna laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and raw. You're not denying it? Greg grabbed Anna's arm, his grip tight. That's enough, he hissed. Anna yanked her arm free, her eyes blazing. No, Greg. It's not enough. Not until I get the truth. Evelyn looked down, her silence speaking volumes. And in that moment, Anna's world shattered. The days that followed were a blur of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. Anna couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She replayed every moment in her mind, analyzing every word, every look, every touch. She started digging, determined to uncover the full extent of their betrayal. She combed through Greg's emails, his phone records, his credit card statements. What she found confirmed her worst fears. Hotel reservations in Evelyn's name. Charges for expensive dinners and gifts. Late-night phone calls and text messages. But the most chilling discovery was a series of emails between Greg and Evelyn, detailing their plan to manipulate Anna into believing she was the problem. She's paranoid, one email read. We just need to keep pushing her until she snaps. Then we can walk away without looking like the bad guys. Armed with the truth, Anna decided she wouldn't be their victim anymore. She hired a lawyer, gathered evidence, and began crafting a plan of her own. When their next counseling session arrived, she walked into the room with a newfound sense of purpose. Evelyn greeted her with a strained smile. Anna, how are you feeling today? Anna returned the smile, her voice calm and even. Oh, I'm feeling much better, thank you. She set a stack of papers on the table and looked directly at Evelyn. Because now, I have the evidence to prove everything. Evelyn's face paled and Greg's eyes widened in panic. Checkmate, Anna said softly. Anna sat at her kitchen table, the weight of everything that had transpired sinking in with every passing minute. Her hands trembled as she sifted through the papers in front of her. They were neatly stacked, the divorce petition, the evidence she'd uncovered, and a series of messages from her lawyer. It felt surreal, like she was reading someone else's story, but the familiar ache in her chest was all too real. The betrayal. The lies. The manipulation. But now it was time to put it all behind her. The first step was the divorce. She had spent weeks gathering evidence, Greg's emails, text messages, phone records, and even the hotel receipts. Every detail painted the same heartbreaking picture. She wasn't paranoid. She wasn't irrational. She was a woman whose trust had been shattered by the two people she thought she could rely on the most. Greg had tried to convince her that their marriage was salvageable, that counseling would fix everything. He apologized profusely in the days following their explosive confrontation, claiming he'd been confused and made a terrible mistake. But Anna wasn't fooled anymore. She wasn't the problem. He was. And so was Evelyn. She had finally realized that their attempts to gaslight her weren't just about saving their affair. They were about making her question her own sanity and self-worth. They had manipulated her every step of the way, each lie another thread in a web designed to trap her in a loveless, deceitful marriage. But now she was free. Anna picked up her phone and dialed the number her lawyer had provided. Her lawyer was a woman named Rachel who had been empathetic, patient, and understanding throughout the entire process. Rachel had told her that this wasn't just about ending her marriage, it was about standing up for herself, reclaiming her power, and ensuring that the people who had wronged her faced consequences. The phone rang twice before Rachel answered. Anna? How are you holding up? I'm ready, Anna said, her voice steady, though she could feel the tightness in her chest. I'm ready to file. I got everything. The evidence. The petition. It's time. There was a long pause and then Rachel spoke. Are you sure? I know it's a lot to carry. Anna took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her decision, but also the relief that followed it. I'm sure. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. They arranged for everything to be submitted that afternoon. Anna hung up the phone and stared at the stack of papers before her. The signature lines were all that remained. Filing for divorce was just the first step. The next was holding Evelyn accountable. Anna didn't know if reporting her to the licensing board would make any difference, but it was a necessary step. The counselor had not only betrayed Anna's trust but also violated the ethical boundaries of her profession. Anna spent hours writing a detailed report, an account of the counseling sessions, the manipulation, the way Evelyn had subtly sided with Greg, and the damning evidence she had found between them. She included text messages, emails, and even the information about their hotel stays, presenting it all in an airtight case. She had every intention of seeing this through. After all, Evelyn was supposed to help them fix their marriage. Instead, she had been an active participant in destroying it. Her behavior was unprofessional and unethical. Anna couldn't let her get away with it. Anna reached out to the state's board of licensed counselors and submitted her report, confident that they would take it seriously. Whether Evelyn would lose her license or face other consequences was uncertain, but at least Anna knew she had done everything she could to ensure she couldn't do the same thing to another vulnerable woman. Days turned into weeks, and as Anna went through the motions of closing one chapter of her life, she began to realize something. She felt lighter, stronger, more in control of her own life than she had in years. The divorce was final. The weight of Greg's betrayal, though still painful, was now something she could process from a distance. She had gotten through the worst of it, and now she could move forward. But it wasn't just about moving on from Greg. It was about rediscovering who she was, apart from the woman who had once been defined by her marriage. Anna had spent years taking care of Greg, adjusting her life to fit his needs, and sacrificing her own happiness. She had pushed her dreams aside to build a life with him, only to realize he hadn't even been truthful with her. But now, for the first time in a long time, Anna was free to dream again. She signed up for a photography class, something she had always wanted to do but had never made time for. She started reading books she had put off for years, rediscovering her love for literature. She even reached out to old friends she had lost touch with, reconnecting with the people who had supported her long before Greg and Evelyn had come into her life. There were days when she still cried, days when the grief of losing her marriage washed over her in waves. But with every tear she felt the weight of the betrayal lift just a little more. In therapy, she began to rebuild her sense of self-worth, which had been chipped away piece by piece during her marriage. Her therapist helped her see the toxic patterns that had been allowed to flourish and taught her how to recognize her own value outside of her relationship with Greg. Anna's confidence grew slowly but surely. She started making decisions for herself, choosing what was best for her rather than constantly trying to please others. She learned to set boundaries, to speak up for herself, and to trust her instincts. And with every passing day, Anna was no longer the woman who had been gaslighted, betrayed, and manipulated. She was someone new, someone stronger, more resilient, and more certain of her worth than she had ever been before. The first time Anna walked into a room filled with strangers, confident in her own skin, she felt something stir inside her, something she hadn't felt in years, a sense of belonging to herself. She had taken control of her life, taken ownership of her happiness, and refused to let anyone's lies and deceptions define her. At a small gathering of former college friends, she found herself chatting with a woman she had once known, but never closely. The conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. "I've missed this," she admitted to her friend, a smile playing on her lips. "I've missed being around people who see me for me, not just as someone's wife or partner." Her friend smiled back, a knowing look in her eyes. "It's good to have you back." And in that moment, Anna realized something else. She had never truly lost herself. She had only allowed herself to be overshadowed by someone else's needs, desires, and lies. But now she was fully present, fully herself, and fully free. As the evening drew to a close, Anna stood outside in the cool night air, taking a deep breath. She had no idea what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. "I will never let anyone make me question my worth again," she whispered to herself, a promise that would echo through the rest of her life. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges, but Anna was no longer afraid. She had faced the darkest corners of her heart and come out stronger. And now she was ready to live the life she deserved, one of freedom, self-love, and endless possibilities. She smiled to herself, her heart full of quiet strength. The best was yet to come. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please show your support by liking this video, share and subscribe to our channel. Also turn on the post notification bell so that you will be notified each time we post a story.